Success is a funny word in my family. It means whatever my parents need it to mean to justify treating my sister Vanessa like royalty and me like a disappointment. When I graduated summa cum laude from law school, Vanessa had just opened her boutique, so success meant entrepreneurship. When I made partner at my firm at 32, Vanessa had expanded to a second location, so success meant growth mindset. When I won a landmark case that made national news, Vanessa had been featured in a local lifestyle magazine, so success meant visibility. The goalposts didn't just move. They existed in an entirely different stadium depending on which daughter was being evaluated. My name is Morgan Chun, and I'm a corporate litigation attorney specializing in financial fraud. I've spent 15 years learning how to trace money, uncover hidden assets, and prove that people are lying about their finances. 3 years ago, I started applying those skills to my own family. Not out of spite, at least, not initially. It started when Vanessa posted photos from her third international vacation that year, while simultaneously telling our parents she could afford to contribute to our grandmother's nursing home care. I was covering the entire $4,200 monthly bill alone while my parents praised Vanessa for building her empire. Something didn't add up. So I started adding. The Sunday dinner that changed everything happened in October. My parents host these dinners monthly at their home in suburban Philadelphia, a 3-bedroom colonial they paid off years ago, largely because I'd helped them refinance at a better rate during my first year as an attorney. Not that anyone remembered that. I arrived at 6 as always. My husband James was working, he's a physician, and his schedule is chaotic, so I came alone. Vanessa was already there, of course, holding court in the living room with her husband Derek and their 2 kids. Morgan. Mom greeted me with a hug that lasted exactly 1 second. Vanessa was just telling us about her plans to open a 3rd store. That's exciting, I said, keeping my voice neutral. It's terrifying, actually, Vanessa said with practiced humility. The overhead costs alone are over $15,000 a month. But you know how it is, you have to spend money to make money. I knew exactly how it was. I also knew that Vanessa's current 2 stores had never turned a profit. But that was information for later. Dinner was the usual performance. Dad grilled steaks while praising Vanessa's business acumen. Mom served her famous potato salad while lamenting that I worked too much and didn't visit enough. Vanessa's children ran around the backyard while everyone agreed they were exceptionally gifted. The confrontation came during dessert. Morgan, Dad said, setting down his fork with unnecessary force. Your mother and I need to talk to you about something. I knew that tone. It was his intervention voice. We're worried about you, Mom added. You're 35 years old. You work constantly. You don't have children. What kind of life is that? I'm happy with my life, I said calmly. But why can't you be successful like your sister? Dad demanded. Vanessa owns her own business. She's her own boss. She's building something. And what am I building, exactly? You're just working for someone else. Following orders, he shook his head. I thought we raised you to be more ambitious. Vanessa nodded sympathetically. It's not too late to find your passion, Morgan. I'd be happy to mentor you if you ever want to start your own thing. Something in me snapped, not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet internal click, like a lock finally turning after years of trying different keys. I appreciate the concern, I said, standing up. But before we continue this conversation, I need to get something from my car. I walked outside, opened my trunk, and retrieved the briefcase I'd prepared 6 months ago. I'd never planned to use it. It was supposed to be for my own peace of mind, proof that I wasn't crazy, that the favoritism was real, that the numbers told a story my parents refused to see. But some offers are too perfect to refuse. I returned to the dining room and set the briefcase on the table, right between the apple pie and the whipped cream. What is that? Vanessa asked, her voice suddenly sharp. I opened the briefcase and removed a thick document bound in a blue cover. The title was printed in bold black letters. Vanessa Chun Martinez, Complete Financial Dependency Analysis, 2021 to 2024. This, I said, is the truth about your sister's success. The room went silent. I opened the document to the executive summary and began reading aloud. Over the past 4 years, Vanessa Shun Martinez has received direct financial support totaling $149,847 from our parents, Edward and Linda Chun. This support has taken multiple forms, including business loans that were later forgiven, direct cash transfers, credit card payments, and coverage of personal expenses. This is ridiculous, Vanessa said, but her face had gone pale. Page 4. Business loans. I flipped to the relevant section. In March 2021, Dad transferred $35,000 to Vanessa's business account as a startup loan. The promissory note, which I obtained through a public records request, since the business is an LLC, shows no repayment schedule was ever established. In December 2021, Mom wrote a check for $22,000 to cover inventory costs after the first store's soft opening failed to generate expected revenue. Neither amount has been repaid. Those were investments, Dad said, his voice strained. In our daughter's future. I'm not disputing that you have the right to invest in Vanessa. I'm disputing the narrative that she's self-made while I'm a failure. I turn to the next section. Page 7. Monthly subsidies. The page displayed a chart I'd made it in Excel, color-coded for clarity, showing regular transfers from my parents' joint account to Vanessa's personal checking account. Since January 2022, Mom and Dad have transferred an average of $2,400 per month to Vanessa. That's $86,400 over 36 months. The memo lines on these transfers vary: groceries, kids, emergency, and my personal favorite, just because we love you. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. How do you know about those? I'm a financial fraud attorney, Mom. I know how to read bank statements. And Dad added me to the family account years ago for emergencies. I kept my voice level. The same account you used to fund Vanessa's lifestyle. Vanessa stood up. This is insane. You're insane. You've been spying on our family. I've been documenting reality. There's a difference. Derek, are you hearing this? Vanessa turned to her husband, who had been conspicuously silent. Derek looked at the document on the table, then at Vanessa. I'd actually like to see more of this, he said quietly. Vanessa's face went from pale to red. Excuse me? You told me your parents gave us the down payment for our house as a wedding gift. You said it was a one-time thing. Derek's voice was measured but tight. Is that not true? I flipped to page 12. The down payment was $45,000, given in June 2020. Since then, Mom and Dad have contributed an additional $18,000 toward your mortgage, $8,400 toward your property taxes, and $12,000 toward renovations. That's $83,400 in housing support alone. The mortgage payments were because business was slow, Vanessa said quickly. It was temporary. 23 months of temporary. I showed Derek the payment schedule. Every month from March 2022 to January 2024, your mortgage was partially or fully covered by our parents. Derek took the document from my hands and started reading. This is a violation of our privacy, Vanessa hissed at me. Your business is an LLC. Its financial filings are public record. Your house purchase is public record. The only private information here is from the family bank account, which I have legitimate access to. I turned to my parents. And which tells a very interesting story. My father hadn't spoken since I started presenting. Now he stood up, his face the particular shade of purple that preceded his angriest outbursts. I don't know what you think you're accomplishing, he said, his voice low and dangerous. But you will stop this right now. I'll stop when you stop calling me a failure while secretly funding Vanessa's entire life. I kept my seat, my voice calm. Page 15. The struggling entrepreneur versus reality. I'd saved this section specifically for this moment. Vanessa's boutique has been operating at a loss since it opened. My husband has a good job. Vanessa started. Derek is a high school teacher, I said. He makes $67,000 a year. I checked. I turned to Derek, who was still reading the document. I mean, no disrespect. Teaching is a noble profession. But it doesn't fund a $600,000 house, 2 Mercedes, and private school for 2 kids. Derek looked up at Vanessa. His expression was unreadable. She's right, Derek. She's right, Vanessa. I've been asking you for years how we afford our lifestyle on my salary and a business that does unmake money. You always said you managed the numbers. I trusted you, This is exactly what she wants, Vanessa said, pointing at me. She's trying to tear us apart because she's jealous. I'm not jealous, I said. I'm tired. Tired of being called unsuccessful while you cash checks from our parents every month. Tired of paying for grandma's nursing home alone while you claim you can't afford to contribute. Tired of watching you play entrepreneur with mom and dad's retirement fund. Their retirement fund? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. I flipped to the final section. Page 22, Impact on Parental Finances. This was the part I hadn't wanted to reveal. The part that had kept me up at night, wondering if I was doing the right thing. But they'd asked for truth, and truth was what they'd get. Mom, Dad, you had $340,000 in retirement savings in January 2020, as of last month. The color drained from my mother's face. You're 63 and 65 years old, I continued. At your current withdrawal rate, you'll be completely out of retirement funds within 3 years. And you're still sending Vanessa $2,400 a month. We wanted to help her succeed, Dad said, but his voice had lost its thunder. You wanted to fund her fantasy while she poses as self-made on Instagram. I closed the document. Meanwhile, you call me, your daughter who works 70-hour weeks, who paid off her own loans, who covers grandma's entire care bill a failure. Because I work for someone else. I pulled one final page from my briefcase. For the record, I made $387,000 last year. I've saved over $900,000 for retirement. I own my home outright, paid off in 8 years. I've donated over $50,000 to charity in the past 5 years and paid $168,000 for grandma's care. I set the page on the table. All without a single dollar from you. The room was absolutely silent. Vanessa's children had stopped playing and were standing in the doorway, sensing that something was wrong. Derek was still holding my document, flipping through pages with an expression of dawning horror. My mother was crying silently. My father was staring at the wall. Vanessa broke first. You planned this, she said, her voice shaking with rage. You've been waiting for the perfect moment to destroy me. I planned nothing. I documented everything. There's a difference. I stood up and began packing my briefcase. I didn't come here to destroy you, Vanessa. I came here to stop being destroyed. Every Sunday dinner where I'm compared to you. Every holiday where my achievements are minimized. Every phone call where mom and dad remind me of everything you've accomplished while I've just worked. I clicked the briefcase shut. I'm done being your scapegoat. I'm done subsidizing grandma's care while you spend mom and dad's retirement on vacations. I'm done pretending your success is anything but their money and your delusion. I walked toward the door, then stopped. Derek, I left a copy of that document in the living room. Take your time reading it. And Vanessa, I'd recommend having an honest conversation with your husband before he decides to have one with a divorce attorney. I drove home in silence, my hands steady on the wheel. I'd expected to feel something: guilt, satisfaction, fear, relief. Instead, I felt numb. The explosion had happened. Now came the fallout. The first call came that night, my mother sobbing, asking how I could do this to the family. I didn't answer. The second call came the next morning, my father furious, demanding I apologize. I didn't answer. The third call came that afternoon, Derek, quiet and measured, asking if he could see the original source documents. I said yes. Over the following weeks, the consequences cascaded. Derek moved out of the house in November. He told Vanessa he'd been suspicious for years but had wanted to believe her. The documentation I provided gave him the proof he needed to stop ignoring his instincts. They separated formally in December. By January, divorce papers were filed. Vanessa's third store never opened. Without my parents' continued funding, they finally stopped the monthly transfers after seeing the retirement fund. Analysis: she couldn't secure the capital. Her second store closed in February. The first is limping along, subsidized now by whatever Derek pays in child support. My parents' financial situation became a crisis. I connected them with a financial advisor, a colleague of mine who specialized in retirement planning for people who made poor decisions. The advisor helped them create a budget, reduce expenses, and start rebuilding. It wasn't ideal, but it was survivable. Mom and Dad didn't thank me for the referral. They barely spoke to me at all. The family myth had been that I was the failure and Vanessa was the success. Confronting the truth meant confronting their role in creating the lie. That was harder than accepting they'd been wrong about me. It was admitting they'd been wrong about themselves. Grandma passed away in March. I paid for the funeral. Vanessa contributed $500, all she could afford, she said. Though her Instagram still showed weekly salon visits and monthly shopping hauls. Some people don't change. They just get better at hiding. It's October now. A full year since that Sunday dinner. James and I are hosting our own holiday this year, a Friendsgiving with colleagues, neighbors and my in-laws, who treat me like a daughter rather than a disappointment. We're expecting 18 people. Chester, my golden retriever, is extremely excited. My relationship with my parents exists in a careful détente. We see each other occasionally, birthdays, major holidays, but the conversation stays surface level. They don't call me a failure anymore, but they don't call me a success either. They don't call me much at all. I'm okay with that. Vanessa and I haven't spoken since the night I left. I hear updates through the family grapevine. The divorce is contentious. The store is struggling. The Instagram posts have gotten less frequent. I don't seek out this information, but I don't avoid it either. It simply is. What I've discovered in the year since I opened that briefcase is that success has nothing to do with family approval. For 35 years, I measured myself against a rigged standard. I worked harder, achieved more, and gave more, but none of it counted because the game was never about merit. It was about a story my parents wanted to tell themselves, that they de-raised a star and a shadow, and their support had nothing to do with the difference. The truth is simpler and sadder. They raised 2 daughters and chose one. Not because Vanessa was better or more deserving, but because she was easier to idealize. She played the role they wanted. I didn't. Some nights I still wonder if I did the right thing. Not because I regret revealing the truth, I don't, but because truth, once spoken, cannot be unspoken. My parents will spend their remaining years knowing that their golden child was a construction built on their money and self-deception. Vanessa will spend hers knowing that everyone knows. Is that justice? Or is it just pain redistributed? I don't have an answer. I'm not sure there is one. What I do know is this: I sleep better now than I have in years. I don't flinch when my phone rings, wondering if it's another call comparing me to my sister. I don't brace myself for holiday dinners, preparing my defenses. I don't measure my achievements against a sister whose achievements were never real. The document sits in my home safe now, filed alongside our wills and insurance policies. I don't need it anymore. The story it told has become common knowledge, and common knowledge doesn't require proof. Sometimes I take it out and flip through the pages. Not to relive the confrontation, but to remind myself that I wasn't crazy, that the favoritism was real. That the numbers, which never lie, told the truth when no one else would. My father called last week. It was unexpected. He hasn't initiated contact in months. "Morgan," he said, his voice older than I remembered. "Your mother and I have been doing some thinking." I waited. "We weren't fair to you." For a long time, not an apology, not exactly, but an acknowledgement which, from my father, was unprecedented. "I know," I said. Silence. "We'd like to see you for Thanksgiving," he said finally. "If you're willing." I thought about it. About the years of being overlooked, dismissed, called unsuccessful. About the confrontation that had burned our family down. About whether the ashes could ever grow anything worth having. "I'll think about it," I said. And I meant it. The briefcase is closed now. The document is filed. The truth has been told, and the consequences have landed where they will. I am Morgan Chun. I am a partner at a major law firm, a wife, a dog mom, and a damn good attorney. I am not unsuccessful. I am exactly who I built myself to be without a single dollar of help. And no one in my family will ever forget that again.